Hola tribe. Today is a Did You Know video. Today's topic of the video is on narcissism and the reasoning. The reason we're doing narcissism today is it's been heightened a whole lot. I know for myself it has been a term used and discussed a lot in the last years, 5+ years, you know. Yet in the last few weeks alone, I have personally been shedding narcissistic beings from my circle. And now I'm witnessing it heightened within my family and friends and clients. They are being challenged with narcissistic partners and family members that they're testing them. And so there's been a lot of conversations. And so today I'd like to have a brief discussion about that and understanding. The information I'm going to offer, you know, there may be other stuff out there discussing similarly, yet what I'm going to talk about is nothing I have found specifically online or anywhere else. It's in fact more of what I have uncovered in my own personal journey, as well as hearing other information and definitions. So I've watched a bunch of different videos and they've provided great information. However, the majority of people, when they talk about narcissism, they literally, it's like run for the hills. They're demonic beings. I mean, just the list goes on and on of hatred. Excuse me, I just like saying that, but a hatred towards narcissistic behavior. And I'd like to shed light on something a little different. I believe that no being should be hated. Finding deeper levels of love and understanding for their behavior is the key. However, not forcing yourself to continually get hurt or continually put yourself in a situation where that behavior is what is being provided to you or served to you. So let's talk. And so I have a little clipboard today because there was a bunch of information that I wanted to make sure I covered. So if you hear that little jingle or you see me looking, just know that's what that is, okay? So I want to first say how I am unattached to terms, right? So even in me saying narcissism, that immediately it creates an umbrella effect, and it is like a diagnosis of someone, right? And I have no interest in diagnosing. None. In fact, anytime I hear narcissism, codependency, you know, bipolar, sociopath, psychopath, any of those terminologies, they are just umbrellas of information that are characteristics showing up in that person. They do not identify, nor should you ever take on their titles. So I know a lot of people that really love putting themselves under the umbrella title of bipolar. All that does is keep them in a loop of perpetual bipolarism. They themselves are not bipolar, they're having bipolar experiences. So I say that because it's very important. Had I personally allowed the terms to which I was told that I was on my journey, had I allowed titles and terms that the medical professionals told me that I should live underneath these umbrellas, I'd still be over 300 pounds, I'd have a permanent limp, and I'd not be able to see out of my left eye. So all that does is when somebody, especially in the medical profession, they place a term or a title over you to identify you, that just can keep you in a perpetual loop. It does not identify you. You choose to stay there. So first and foremost, know that. So when I say narcissism, I am not claiming to identify somebody as a narcissist and point my finger, I am saying that they are showing up with narcissistic characteristics. Okay? And so that's really, really important to know, because I'm not saying that that person should be looked at as a narcissist. However, you may want to identify their patterning so that you yourself can know what you're dealing with, right? They have narcissistic qualities, they have bipolar qualities, they have qualities of that person. They themselves do not have to be that person. It is rare, it is extremely rare for any human being to be point blank pure narcissist. That level of dark energy of narcissism is very rare. Very, very rare. They do exist. They absolutely do exist. I have encountered them. However, the majority of people are just playing out roles, right? It is a safeguard. People are using, well, they're actually being used. Their subconscious mind has created like puzzle pieces and pathways to protect their wounds, right? Truly, that's what narcissism is. When you're dealing with somebody who is showing you narcissistic traits, they, majority of the time, like I said, there are not too many that are conscious narcissists. The majority of the time, they are literally, unknown to themselves, that they have created mechanics or a pathway or a pattern. They've created some level of a patterning that safeguards their wounds, right? So an example is every time a loving human being shows up in the world, whether it be a relationship, a family member, a loved one, whatever it is, when someone gives them authentic love and they are unsure of how to receive it, not consciously, it's a vibration. So they're given this love. When that love comes in, there's a meter of energy inside of their body that goes off, and they automatically have set something up that causes them to communicate and behave in a specific way that can harm other people. Okay? So, like I said, majority of the time, they don't even know they're doing it. They literally have created this to safeguard themselves. And usually they're safeguarding themselves from, vulnerability, pain, lies, manipulation. I'm going to go with sins because it's the easiest way of saying it, but like the sins that their soul has created, for me personal, it does not have to come from this lifetime. It can come from this lifetime. Oftentimes we replay things out in this lifetime that we've brought with us. However, neither here nor there. It is safeguarding someone from experiencing their own personal truth, to seeing themselves. So, believe it or not, when you give authentic love to somebody who's under the umbrella of narcissism, it hurts them. It is so painful and frightening to them. They don't know how to receive it because they don't deem themselves worthy of it. They do not believe that they're worthy of authentic love. So what they do, because everyone needs it, everyone requires that vibration of love, what they do is create scenarios in order to take it from you, to manipulate you with it, right? They can get energy out of you. It doesn't have to be love energy. It can be any energy they want. So what they do is do things in order to poke and prod at you, to get you to feed them, right? And so they're never satiated. That's the problem. They're never satiated. So the pattern continues. They don't understand. They themselves, majority of the time, are unconscious. They don't even know that they're in a place of self-punishment, not allowing themselves to deem themselves worthy of unconditional love or authentic love. I just look at that as very painful. For me personally, it's extremely painful to wish to give love to a human being that you see their worthiness, you see their light, you see their not just potential, but their beauty. And they themselves can't receive it because they haven't deemed themselves worthy of it, right? I think we all have people in our lives like that. We just don't always realize that's what's happening. So these people are so pained when we give them love. So when you show up to give authentic love to a narcissistic being, I'll come back to that. When you give love to a narcissistic being, they often reject the giving of it. They might take a little bit of it, but they'll stop you. They'll stop you from giving them that love, and they'll find another way of creating an emotional exchange from you that gives them a source of feed, because they only think they're worthy of being thieves. Right? They only think they're worthy of sneaking it or stealing it or manipulating for it. They don't believe that they're actually worthy of being gifted it. Now, there's a few reasons for that. So I'm going to go into this little piece here. So we want to go into what narcissism actually is. And so by my personal decoding of it, what is narcissism? Narcissism deals with the super and lower ego, okay? So you have the super ego, you have the lower ego. It is the same as saying a narcissist and a codependent. Interesting. This is the point I was thinking of earlier, is that a narcissist and a codependent are the exact same thing. Oftentimes, people believe that the narcissist requires a codependent person in order to create the loop in the feed, right? It's untrue. It's untrue. They can create a codependent energy in the other person. There's ways of manipulating them enough for the other person to create codependency within the relationship, and that happens all the time. But that's only so the narcissist doesn't have to work so hard to create feed. Interesting point, right? So the narcissist themselves is both the lower and super ego. They are the codependent and the narcissist showing up at the same time. The narcissist requires feed. It requires an emotional response out of people, good, bad, otherwise it doesn't matter. It requires that they created something within you. They don't want to take any accountability for what they created, other than knowing that they got you to feel something in their presence based off of what they did. Now, the narcissist is the codependent because they need you. They are codependent on feed. So they'll show up in both ways. They'll show up as like slightly vulnerable and then flip that switch and make you feel vulnerable. So what they're trying to do is force you into a codependency that you actually need them to feel good about yourself. Interesting. So, interestingly enough, everyone, every last one of us has the super and lower ego. Everyone. So what that means is every last one of us is the narcissist and the codependent. At any point in time, we can show up like that in a relationship. So, how can I explain this? In all dynamics, in every single situation, every single conversation, every single moment that we're engaging with another human being, right? You have the opportunity. If you are feeling less than about yourself that day, you'll probably show up feeling like needy, right? You'll feel like you're unconscious of it, but most likely you'll need a little bit of energy from another human being because you're feeling weak that day for whatever reason, right? So if you show up, if there's two people engaged, you show up with a space of lack. Your cup isn't filled. That other person across from you has options. they can go on autopilot and realize that you're coming from a place of lack, which automatically puts them in a place of power over you. Narcissism. Okay? How often we're in a very loving situation, and if you come from lack, that other person can go on an autopilot and come from a place of narcissism in order to gain even more power. You already showed up from a place of lack of power. It is easy for them to take more from you. Interesting, right? Now, the other part of that is that you can choose. If somebody shows up from a place of narcissism or codependency, like they feel like they're better than you or they feel like they're less than you, you don't have to go on autopilot. And in fact, I encourage you not to. You want to be present with your own personal vibration and you want to neutralize it. You want to bring that to a balanced place by not feeding one or the other. Offering love from a neutral standpoint. You are no better than this person in that moment and you are no less than this person in that moment. So that way the person showing up isn't able to gain feed of codependency or narcissism in that moment. Okay? So learning how to do that as a tool and technique we can get into. I actually need to, this video can only be so long today. So on that note, so the narcissist at any moment in time can show up in any of us, okay? So I have come from that place in my own personal soul's journey. I have come from that place of more of like less than, thinking I was less than other people. And so the only way I deemed myself worthy was because other people saw my greatness or goodness or whatever it was, right? So very childlike, needing approval from other people, which made it easy for somebody who also needed approval from other people, but they themselves deemed themselves better than other people. So what they needed to do is maintain that, right? And that is the narcissistic superego. They needed to maintain that feeling of better than other people. So what they did is created a way of feeding off of those who already felt less than. So it was easy enough for me to attract somebody in my environment who was more of a narcissistic being. Now, that can flip-flop. Showing up from a place of neutrality, loving them and not allowing yourself to take the bait, okay? Don't take the bait. That's how it ends, all right? You can cancel out any behaviors when you don't take the bait. And here's the most important thing. So this is my diagram, and I will show you. This is my really elaborate drawing, people. This is my elaborate drawing. Let me show you. Oop, the lighting here is wonderful. Okay, so what is narcissism, right? Narcissism, we have, let's look at this first triangle right here. Okay, I'm gonna just bring it in here. So we have the superego, which is narcissism, and you have the lower ego, which is codependency. Okay, so you have the superego and the lower ego. The third point, what is the whole point of these two? What game is being played out here? What pattern is being played out when you're living in a place of super and lower ego? Insignificance. You're a narcissistic energy and a codependent energy both feel insignificant. They do not know how to access their own personal light from within. That's it. That is it. What is happening in those places, so a super and lower ego, narcissist, codependent, they do not know how to access their own internal light, which makes them feel insignificant. So what do is play energetic games in order to feel significant in that moment with someone else. And then they create a lifestyle of how to feel significant in any given moment. They put a lot of energy into it, actually. They don't work on accessing their own internal light and significance. They work towards, this is, for some reason, they've programmed themselves to believe that the only way that they'll gain the feeling of significance is by taking it from other people rather than accessing it from within. Right? So most recently, I had a friend talking to me about somebody they were dealing with, a ex-partner of theirs, a recent ex-partner of theirs, who is pretty much in the dark night of the soul. Okay? While this person is in the dark night of the soul, they are berating my friend, pretty much screaming out to the world. Well, she's starving. She's starving for narcissistic feed. She's in the dark night of the soul, okay? So this person is in the dark night of the soul, and in the process of the dark night of the soul, instead of finding the internal light, because when you're in that cave, when you're in that tunnel, the whole point of the dark night of the soul is so that you find the internal light within you that brings you the access out the tunnel. That's it. A dark night of the soul happens so you shed layers of yourself that are insignificant to your soul, and you amplify the soul's energy, right? In order to become greater and better or enhance who you are as a being. Now, what is happening in this situation is that instead of allowing themselves to have a die-off of the insignificant energy, they're screaming out and blaming other people and shaming other people, trying to make it seem like it's somebody else's fault that they can't find their own eternal light. It's not true. However, if this person goes in and allows themselves to sit in the uncomfortable energy of it all, they will in fact find their own internal light and be able to get themselves out. Those of us who have done a lot of journey work and dark night of the soul work know that it's painful, excruciating at times, makes you feel insane. You're shedding layers of self and arguing with these aspects that you have allowed yourself to identify with, and you're letting them leave. You don't know who you're going to be on the other side of it. All you know is that you will no longer be the being that entered that tunnel, that entered that dark night. Okay, that's the whole point of the dark night of the soul. So when a narcissist goes to the dark night of the soul, they tend to flip out and blame other people rather than take the journey. Okay? Because they don't know how to claim their own significance. They feel so insignificant, they don't know how to find it. So here is the next piece. And so, significance. The key to unlocking this and healing, the key to healing narcissistic and codependent behavior is claiming your personal significance. Right? How do you do that? You have dark night of the soul moments, right? You learn how to access your own internal light. And what I find is giving without expecting to receive anything is the best way to do it, right? So giving and standing in that level of humility and just accepting the fact that there may be no reward from this at all other than you feeling good about you for having done that act, okay? That is a great way of owning your own personal significance, or a pathway to it. Now, how does one stand in their own personal significance, right? How do you stand in your own personal significance? Two elements, extremely important. You must stand in your power with grace. Very polar opposite energies, right? Standing in one's power often makes other people feel small, but when you stand in your power with grace, there's a level of gentleness and humility and self-respect that takes place. You own your own personal significance, your godliness, your oneness with all things when you stand with power and grace. So know that it is not your job. It is not your job to heal the narcissist. In fact, the most powerful thing you can do is no longer give them feed, to neutralize, to continue to own your own personal significance with power, with grace. Allow them to be who they are. Allow them. In fact, in those moments, most likely there was a break of their spirit when they were a child. I really love that in the last few months, people keep telling me, they go, all children are narcissists. I never thought that. I never even thought that for a second. But isn't it interesting that parents, the majority of parents I talk to will tell me that all children are narcissists. Crazy. Well, I don't have any kids, so I didn't look at it that way. I just have fun with kids. But that makes sense to me. All children are narcissists. Of course they are. Their reason for knowing they have significance is because all of us adults are like, oh my goodness, they're so cute. Look at how great they are. They haven't done anything. There's nothing in their lives at that point in time, especially in the early years, that have given them the level of internal power to own their own pure significance. Most children these days being born have a level of knowing of there's a greatness within them, but they haven't had enough experiences to test it, right? So it is in the testing of your spirit is how you determine your levels of significance. Okay, it's very important to know that. And so, yes, all children have a level of narcissist, and they're 100% codependent, right? They require an adult, they require somebody else to feed and bathe and nurture and do all of these things for them. So a child is narcissistic. Why do we have so many narcissistic adults? Because that most likely something happened to the child's spirit and in their development that they never fully got the opportunity to be tested. Their spirit wasn't tested. They were so safeguarded. And oftentimes it comes from the mother. The mother overly safeguarded the child, causing the child to be overly codependent on the mother and blame the mother that the mother hasn't shown up enough for them in their adulthood. Like, why isn't she taking on the responsibility here? That's what she does, right? That's what the mother does, is she constantly takes on that responsibility just because that's what a mother does, right? A mother, and I love this, so a mother's energy, she'll take on her accountability and everyone else's. That's what a mom's energy does, right? And it doesn't matter if it's in a female body or a male body. The mothering energy, the nurturer, shows up for herself, not even fully, usually. The mother will literally sacrifice herself in order to nurture and take care of everybody else, right? So resentment does get created in that. That is on the behalf of the person who created it. The mother should never have done that. Just letting you know. If you're a mother that overly safeguards, you need to check in and be accountable that you're actually not allowing your child to develop properly, which can create levels of narcissist codependency in the future. Yet we must go through. The spirit must be tested. It must be. There are tiers of passage, like there are passageways that we must go through in our development in order to become full-fledged developed human beings. And I think a lot of people out there are afraid to witness that experience. They don't want their children to have such painful experiences, so they stop them from doing so, which is actually damaging the child long term. Right? So why are we in this process? Because the child is not getting its full development, right? So as an adult, if you're dealing with narcissistic codependent behavior, you do not have to cure the person. You do not have to continually show up beyond what they're doing. In fact, the best medicine you can give them is to neutralize it with love, staying in your place of power, owning your significance, and with grace, okay? And allowing them to find their own. If you keep running in to save them, they will never figure it out. Okay? So, it is not up to you to do that. It is not up to you to do that. It's heartbreaking to witness, especially adult human beings, lack the ability to own their own personal significance. It's even more heartbreaking to be on the other side of that abusive behavior where they're stealing and manipulating in order to gain access to a false power and a false feeling of feeling significant. There's no authenticity, there's no authentic significance in that. It's stolen, it's not authentic. So, with that being said, it was a lot. That was a lot. I would love to hear from you on this. Please feel free to tell me your stories. Please have questions, and let me know what resonated with you. Let me know what you may have heard before and what you may not have heard before. Because like I said, the information I just provided you is not something I truly found. I didn't hear it from anyone else. It is what I've downloaded in my experiences and witnessed as a decoding, I call it. I consider myself a decoder of energy. So a decoding of one's experiences to bring about information. So I'd love to know more. If you like the information today, please like, share, and subscribe. And if you know people dealing with narcissistic situations, codependent and narcissistic beings, please share my video. Please share my video. I would love to have their information and help them too. So if this was helpful to you, please pass it along. I appreciate you. Thank you, tribe. Mwah! Peace out, yo.